The city was buzzing with its usual chaos. The distant hum of traffic mixing with the faint scent of coffee and pastries from street vendors. Lila Hart stumbled along the crowded sidewalk, cradling her tiny son Noah in her arms. The purple hue of her skin glimmered faintly under the streetlights, a quiet reminder that she was unlike anyone else in this bustling metropolis. Exhaustion weighed on her shoulders like a physical burden, each step a battle between sheer will and fatigue. Noah whimpered softly, his small fingers curling around Lila's, and she pressed him closer to her chest, murmuring soothing words. She had worked 12 hours straight at the cafe, barely had time to feed herself, and yet the world seemed oblivious to the sacrifices she made daily. Her legs threatened to buckle as she rounded the corner, and without warning, she stumbled, nearly dropping her son. "Hey, are you okay?" a deep voice called out. Lila looked up into the striking blue eyes of Ethan Vale, a young billionaire she vaguely recognized from news articles, headlines praising his genius and ruthless business acumen. He looked impossibly out of place among the hurried pedestrians, impeccably dressed, yet there was genuine concern etched across his face. I'm fine," Lila gasped, though her trembling hands betrayed her. "No, you're not," Ethan said firmly, gently taking Noah into his arms to stabilize the baby. "Come on, let's get you inside somewhere safe." Lila hesitated, pride and exhaustion warring within her. But before she could protest, Ethan guided them into the lobby of the nearby luxury hotel. The soft carpets and ambient lighting were a stark contrast to the cold streets outside. She sank onto a velvet armchair, her body trembling from the adrenaline and weariness. Ethan knelt in front of her, placing Noah safely in her lap while scanning her with an unreadable expression. "You've been pushing yourself too hard," he said softly. "Who takes care of you?" I manage," Lila whispered, her voice barely audible, the weight of her responsibilities pressing on her chest. Ethan studied her for a moment, noting the way her dark hair fell messily over her face, the faint rings under her eyes, and the way she instinctively shielded Noah with her arms. There was something in her vulnerability, a quiet strength that intrigued him more than he expected. "Look," he said finally, "you need rest. Let me help. There's a suite nearby. We can arrange for you and your son to stay until you're ready to face the world again." Lila blinked, surprised. I can't impose. I don't even know you." "You're not imposing," Ethan replied with a faint smile. "Call it temporary protection." For the first time in what felt like forever, Lila allowed herself to relax. She let the exhaustion take over, her eyes drooping as she held Noah close. Ethan remained at her side, quietly observing, his heart stirring in ways he hadn't anticipated, as she drifted into a much-needed sleep. The faint brush of her fingers against his hand sparked a warmth neither had expected, a connection born out of chance, exhaustion, and unspoken longing. The world outside continued its relentless pace, but inside that quiet hotel suite, two lives, one human, one alien, were about to intertwine in ways neither could yet imagine. The morning sun spilled softly through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the hotel suite. Lila stirred, blinking against the light, Noah cooing gently in her arms. The soft lavender of her skin seemed almost to glow in the early rays. For a moment she couldn't remember where she was, until Ethan appeared at the doorway, freshly showered, hair slightly damp, and a cup of coffee in his hand. "Good morning," he said, his deep voice gentle, almost hesitant.
"Sleep well?"
Lila forced a small smile, still groggy. "As well as a mother can, I suppose." She shifted slightly, balancing Noah in her arms, feeling the warmth of his tiny body. Ethan's eyes softened as he stepped closer, placing the coffee on a nearby table before kneeling in front of them. He reached out slowly, brushing a loose strand of hair from Lila's face. "You don't have to do everything alone," he murmured. "I can help." Lila's lips parted in surprise. She had been so used to fending for herself, pushing through exhaustion, that someone offering assistance felt alien, almost forbidden. I don't know if I can accept that," she admitted, her voice small. Ethan's gaze held hers, steady and unyielding. "Then let me earn your trust," he said simply. The day unfolded in quiet, intimate moments. Ethan helped prepare a simple breakfast while Lila fed Noah. She caught glimpses of him studying her, watching her movements, the way she cared for her son, the subtle grace even in exhaustion. When Noah fussed mid-meal, Ethan instinctively scooped him up, rocking him with an ease that surprised her. A flicker of something warm, almost fluttering, passed through her chest. "You're good with him?" Lila said softly, breaking a silence neither had noticed forming. Ethan shrugged. though a faint blush colored his cheeks. "I've never had someone like him in my life. He changes things." The afternoon brought quiet tension as Lila tried to clean up the small chaos of the suite. Ethan watched her move from room to room, sometimes stepping in to hand her a towel or gently adjust Noah's blanket. The simple gestures, his hands brushing hers accidentally, a soft glance that lingered too long, created a heat neither expected. At one point, Lila reached for a bottle and Ethan's hand met hers. Their fingers intertwined, a fleeting spark igniting in the space between them. "You're different from anyone I've met," Ethan said quietly, almost to himself. Lila's heart thudded painfully. She knew the tension in the room was more than just concern for Noah. She looked at him, her purple-tinged skin glowing softly in the late afternoon light, and realized just how drawn she was to him. "Maybe you're not the only one," she whispered, almost afraid to speak the words aloud. The evening fell, and with Noah asleep in his crib, they found themselves sitting closer than necessary on the sofa, hands brushing as they reached for the same blanket. Ethan's voice lowered, intimate. "I never thought I'd want to be around someone like this. Like you." Lila looked into his eyes, seeing a vulnerability that mirrored her own. A gentle warmth spread between them as their shoulders touched. It was an innocent closeness, yet charged with a tension neither wanted to break too soon. The quiet of the suite wrapped around them, the city noise fading to nothing. As night deepened, Lila rested her head against Ethan's shoulder, exhausted but comforted. Ethan's hand found hers again, fingers interlacing naturally. It was the start of something neither had expected, a connection forged in trust, quiet intimacy, and the unspoken pull of hearts beginning to intertwine. Part 3 will bring in more romantic tension and conflict, as Lila struggles with her pride while Ethan's feelings grow stronger, showing them navigating life together under the same roof. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the suite, catching dust motes in the air. Lila was already awake, moving quietly around the kitchen while Noah slept peacefully in his crib. Ethan appeared behind her, his arms loosely crossed, watching her with an expression that was part amusement, part awe. "You don't stop, do you?" he asked softly. Lila smiled faintly, not turning around. "I have to keep moving." "He keeps me moving too." She gestured toward Noah, then finally looked at Ethan. The sight of him, dark hair slightly tousled and eyes lingering on her every move, made her stomach flutter in ways she hadn't expected. Ethan stepped closer, hesitating. "Lila, I need to ask something." She tilted her head, wary. "What is it?" He lowered his voice, intimate, almost shy. "Would you let me be more than a helper? More than someone who watches you from the sidelines?" Her heart skipped a beat. She knew the offer wasn't just practical help. It was a quiet declaration of something deeper, something tender, yet fear tightened her chest. Letting someone in had always been dangerous, especially for her and Noah. I don't know, Ethan," she whispered. He reached out, brushing a loose strand of her purple-tinged hair from her face. "Then let me show you." Small steps. His hand lingered, and she felt the warmth of his skin, the solidity of his presence. It was grounding, yet thrilling. The day unfolded with small, intimate moments that felt monumental. Ethan helped bathe Noah, his careful hands steady and confident. Lila couldn't help but watch, noticing how gently he held her son, the way he whispered silly little things to make him laugh. And when Noah giggled, Lila's chest tightened with something unfamiliar. Hope. As evening approached, Lila prepared dinner while Ethan sat at the counter, pretending to read a document but watching her every move. She felt a spark when he reached over to hand her a spoon, their fingers brushing in a deliberate, teasing manner. She flushed, turning her face away but smiling despite herself. "You're impossible," she said, though her voice carried a warmth she didn't intend to reveal. "Only with people I care about," Ethan replied, his gaze lingering. Later, after Noah was asleep, they found themselves on the balcony, the city light stretching endlessly below. Ethan's hand brushed against hers, intentionally this time, and she let it remain. The tension between them was undeniable now, charged with something more than attraction. A desire that was as thrilling as it was terrifying. "I don't want to rush you," Ethan murmured, voice low. "But I can't pretend I don't feel this. I can't pretend I don't want you. Both of you." Lila's breath hitched. She turned to face him, the vulnerability in his eyes echoing her own. I feel it too," she admitted, her voice trembling. Their faces drew closer, the space between them charged with electricity. Ethan's hand cradled her cheek, thumb brushing lightly across her skin. The first kiss was gentle, exploratory. lingering just long enough to ignite something deep within both of them. It was intimate, tender, and yet undeniably urgent. When they parted, their foreheads rested together, hearts pounding in unison. Lila felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. Ethan's presence was a storm she didn't want to resist. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a life where she didn't have to carry everything alone. A life where love wasn't just a fleeting fantasy. The next morning, Lila awoke to the soft hum of the city outside and the quiet breathing of Noah in his crib. Ethan was already awake, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, watching her with a mixture of amusement and admiration. She froze for a moment, caught off guard by his presence, then smiled sheepishly. "Good morning," he said softly, his voice low, intimate. "Morning," she replied, trying to sound casual. But her heart raced. The kiss from last night lingered in her mind, igniting a warmth that made her both nervous and thrilled. They shared a quiet breakfast together, their conversation light but laced with an unspoken tension. Ethan was patient, careful not to overwhelm her, yet his eyes constantly sought hers as if trying to read her thoughts. Lila found herself drawn to him in ways she hadn't anticipated. His calm presence, his gentle teasing, and the unmistakable way he cared for Noah. After breakfast, they took Noah to the park. Lila pushed the stroller while Ethan walked beside her, keeping a watchful eye. He joked with her, making her laugh, and she felt the walls she had built around herself beginning to crumble. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. "You know," Ethan said as they stopped near a fountain, "I never imagined that a single mother could teach me so much about life and about love." Lila felt her cheeks heat up. "I'm not a teacher," she whispered, though she couldn't deny the truth in his words. He reached out, brushing a strand of her purple-tinged hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "Maybe not," he murmured, his voice husky, "but you've certainly changed mine." The afternoon brought challenges. A call from Lila's ex reminded her of the complications of her past, and Ethan's assistant called, asking about a high-profile meeting he couldn't miss. The intrusion of the outside world threatened to pull them apart, yet they found solace in each other. Later, back at the apartment, Ethan helped Lila with Noah's bath. Their hands brushed repeatedly, the touches electric and intimate. Lila felt herself leaning into him, trusting him in ways she hadn't trusted anyone in years. Ethan, in turn, found himself captivated not just by her beauty but by her strength, resilience, and tenderness. As night fell, they sat together on the balcony, the city lights shimmering below. Ethan draped a blanket over their shoulders, pulling her close. Their faces were inches apart, the tension between them palpable. "Lila," he whispered, his lips barely brushing hers, "I can't imagine my life without you. Without him." She looked at Noah, asleep in his crib inside, then back at Ethan. "I want to believe that," she admitted, her voice trembling, "but life hasn't made it easy." He cupped her face in his hands, their foreheads touching, eyes locked. "Then let me make it easier," he said. The vulnerability in his voice mirrored her own fears, yet it also offered a promise of support, love, and something lasting. The night ended with them holding each other close, a tender intimacy growing between them. Lila felt a cautious hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, love could find its way even through exhaustion, fear, and the chaos of life. The following week brought a whirlwind of emotions. Lila struggled to balance work, motherhood, and the growing feelings she had for Ethan. Yet each time she looked at him, helping Noah take his first tentative steps, laughing at the smallest things, she felt a warmth in her chest she hadn't experienced in years. Ethan, for his part, had taken a step back from his high-powered meetings to spend time with them. He realized that business deals and public appearances couldn't compare to the quiet moments he shared with Lila and Noah. He discovered the small joys of bedtime stories, morning cuddles, and watching Lila's eyes light up at Noah's every accomplishment. One rainy afternoon, as they sat together in the living room, Ethan watched Lila wrap a towel around Noah, her purple-tinged hair damp from giving him a bath, her gentle smile, the way she hummed softly to him, and the tenderness in her movement struck a chord in Ethan's heart. He found himself leaning closer, brushing a strand of her damp hair from her face, their eyes meeting in a silent, intimate understanding. "Lila," he murmured, his voice deep with emotion, "I don't want to imagine my life without you or him. I know it's sudden, but I've fallen completely for both of you." Lila's breath caught. She reached out, her fingers grazing his cheek, tracing the line of his jaw. "Ethan, I don't know if I'm ready for everything that comes with..." But I do know one thing. I've never felt safer, happier, or more alive. The rain tapped gently against the windows as Ethan took her hand, pressing it to his chest. We'll take it one step at a time, he whispered, but I promise we face it together. That evening, Ethan surprised her by setting up a small dinner in their living room. Candles flickered, casting warm light across the room, and soft music played in the background. Noah giggled from his high chair, enjoying the attention and warmth of the moment. Ethan lifted Lila into his arms for a slow, intimate dance, her laughter mingling with the music. As they swayed, their faces close, Ethan pressed his lips to hers again, tender and consuming. Lila felt a shiver of excitement, realizing that love, even born in exhaustion and chaos, could be fierce, steady, and real. You make this life brighter, Ethan whispered between kisses. Lila rested her forehead against his, smiling, and you make it possible to hope again. Days turned into weeks and their bond deepened. Ethan became an active part of Noah's life, attending doctor appointments, playdates, and bedtime stories. Lila learned to lean on him, allowing herself to experience love without fear. One quiet night, as they sat together watching Noah sleep peacefully, Ethan held Lila close. We've been through so much, he murmured, but it feels like home. Lila rested her head on his shoulder, her heart full. Home, she echoed, is wherever we're together. And in that moment, with the city lights glowing softly outside, Ethan, Lila, and Noah formed a small, imperfect, but perfect family. A love born from exhaustion, surprise, and chance had blossomed into something enduring, tender, and real. Proof that sometimes the most unexpected beginnings could lead to the most extraordinary endings.